Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Point of Sale application. In this exclusive training, I'm going to show you how we create an amazing point of sale application. We're going to start from the beginning, from a blank sheet. So every step, every line of code, and every field and format, I'm going to show you how you can create an amazing application right before your eyes. So let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining us today. I've got a really fantastic training for you today, something I've never created, a point of sale application. I'm going to walk you through it. I hope you'll stay. It's going to be a little bit of a training, not tons of code, more formatting. We've got a lot to cover today. I'm really excited about this. Before we get started, I want to make sure you know that you can get this application downloaded using the links in the description below, absolutely free. In fact, this one's going to be a zip. I'm going to include some pictures for you, maybe some barcode fonts, the application, so you won't want to miss it. Make sure you download it. And also, especially with these live trainings, I tend to make, maybe there's a few updates or a few issues with it live, so you always want to download my version and compare your version with my version. I always appreciate when you try to program these yourself, and I think it's really fantastic, so you always want to compare those. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so using the button down below, and make sure you click the notifications bell. I create these trainings each and every Tuesday absolutely free for you, and I love to see what you can create, so I always appreciate that. If you do like these trainings and you love Excel and you want to turn your passion into profits, I have just the course for you. In fact, our Excel for Freelancers mentorship program is going to teach you just how to do that. Turn your passion into profits. In fact, in this program, we're going to go from concept to cash and everything in between in weekly videos, while I create an amazing accounting application right along with you. And I hope you'll create your own applications right along. These are weekly subscription based. It's an amazing course, and I hope you'll jump on the bandwagon. Tons and tons of students are loving it and learning how to create and sell their own applications. All right, great. Glad we got that out of the way. And also, if you do like these applications and you want over 100 of them, I do have a 100 workbook pack, so I'll keep that in mind. I'll put the links down below. If you want to get 100 of them, it's just $37. Okay, thanks, great. Let's get started. As you can see, I've got a blank sheet here, nothing on here. I've got sheet number 1 called POS. That's going to be our point of sale application. I've got another sheet just with a few item names, and these are linked to pictures. I've got some pictures for each of these. It's just simply item ID, item name, item description, price, and an image. This image is linked to a folder, and inside that folder I've got some images here. As you can see right here, I've just got some pictures, and they're linked actually on my desktop. I've got a folder of the same pictures on my desktop. I'm going to include these pictures so you can play around with it as well, so you can work. You don't have to create your own pictures. That way you can try out and add features and customize yourself. So I'll include these in this little table so that you have everything you need. All you'll want to do in your own applications is make sure that you update these links with your actual filings, right? These are to mine, so that's not going to help you, these image links. So I want to make sure you get yours. And then, of course, the sheet 3 is going to be where we're going to put our sales. I want to track all the sales that we've done previously. That's important as we create this. So sheet 3 is going to handle this. So again, this is going to be our main application where we're going to enter and print receipts, items here, and then sales here. So let's get started. As always, what I like to do is I like to save the first 2 columns for admin, and we hide those columns. So let's color those a little bit differently. And while we go into the home, I'm just going to color those gray. I always want to hide those columns and keep those for admin. So that's a great way to do that. Next up, I want to give it a name. Let's just call it something like point of sale. And that way we can color the columns, let's say all the way through O, and then we're going to save some room for receipt. So we're going to format these cells, give it a fade, so maybe a fill fade. I'll use something a little bit different than I usually do. If you're familiar with these, then it'll just take a minute to watch. Sometimes repetition helps, so even seeing it over and over again helps. And then I'm going to color the one below a little bit less of a fade. And then we'll give that a fill effects of a little bit lighter of a turquoise color. So we'll go to here. And then I want that fading into the background, the main background color. So let's color that. I'm also going to clear out some of those rows with some for the receipt. So not everything's going to be colored because I want the background of the receipt. And the background is, let's say, K through N. K through N. I want this to be our receipt. So I'm going to actually make that white. And so we'll color that white because I want our receipt to print out, and then we can extend this column. So basically the idea is to have our receipt here and our form here, and then this column will just be for spaces so that you can extend this off a little bit. So that way your screen's all the same color. So we'll give it a font, a larger font, and I'll merge and center it maybe to J. And so we have a little bit of a larger font, and we'll increase the font maybe to about 32 or something like that. It's something nice and big. Oh, that's too much. Okay. All right, that should be good. Let's go with 32. I like that a little bit better. And we can then add some icons in here and add some shapes. What I want to do also is I want to add an item name. Let's say in 3, item name. I want to put that in there because that's important. And then I'll put the description down here. And then I want a picture also, so I want to put in that picture. So we also have, I also want to know the subtotal of that. So let's put that subtotal here because I want to keep track of it. And then the tax, I want to put that there. Total, I want to keep that. Pay type, I want to know what type they're paying with. And payment. And then change also. I want to keep track of the change as well. Okay, actually I want them all in the same column, so just copy those over and paste them here. I want them all in the same column. Then I'm going to then have a space for each one of these, so we'll block those out and then keep that in mind. All right, so that's basically what I want. I want to keep track of that. So, all right, I'll put a border around that. I'm going to format those cells and put a border, let's say the same darker turquoise color, and we'll use a border, inside and out border. And I'll use this dotted line for the middle. Okay, so we've got that. We got a total, and I'll right justify this so that we can see that. And then I want to add colons. I want consistency, so let's add colons on these here. Pay type, and then payment. We want to keep track of the payment, and then we want to keep track of the change. Really, there's only the pay type and the payment are going to be user entered. The rest are going to be calculated. So let's put these in the background as white. Okay, I want probably going to put the item description right here. So let's put a box around that. Format the cells. Again, we're going to use the same border here. Same color consistency all the way around. And then I'll put a dotted line here horizontally because I want that description to go. Let's put a solid line actually. And I'll put the dotted line here. So we want the item name. I want to give a little bit larger space for that. So I'm going to merge and center it and left justify it. I want the item name here and the item description here. So I'm going to merge and center that too. And let's give it a little bit more space for that and right justify it. Okay, so we've got the item name. We're going to put the calculated information here. And then I also want, of course, the price of the information. Let's go put that in the 6th price. We want to show the price. We want to be able to change that price as well. So we're going to put that as white. And I also want the quantity. We also want to change the quantity here. So both of these are going to have the same formats. Both of those are going to be editable. Color those white there. And we also want to make sure that they're both right justified. And then in this case, we can keep those, let's say, right justified as well. All right, so we're going to format those cells pretty much using the same borders that we have, the same border colors that we do throughout the application. And we'll use the same border, and then I want the dotted line in the middle vertically. Okay, so it's starting to come together now. Let's save our work. And I also want to scan the item. Of course, we're going to be scanning the item. That is important, so we're going to put that here. Let's just put scan item here because I want to put a little bit larger in case it's a larger number, and then left justify it. Let's put in a colon, keep it consistent. See, we like consistent here. And then right justify that and do the same thing here. So let's make this white and again put the same borders around that, formatting the cells with the border Thanks for your patience on these while I format these, but you seem to really like me to watch me create these. So based on your views, I'm going to try to do a lot more than that. All right, so we have our basic. I'm going to put the picture here. I want that a little small picture here, and I'm going to put a button set here, and then I want to put a button set here as well. The receipt information will go here, and this will be just a little spacer. All right, let's add some buttons in here. So I'm going to insert some pictures here and see what we got. I've got some saved already, so I'm just going to insert those. They're going to be bigger, so let's just bring those down to 0.3 or something manageable so that we can see those, and then we'll size them accordingly. Those are the ones that are going to go on the button, so we'll have to bring those to the top. But we have this is an icon here that I'm going to use for the entire point of sale application. So I'm going to drag this up here, make it a little bit bigger so it's obvious, and then I'm going to add it more of a theme color, which would be this. So give a little bit more theme color. We can also add a little bit of a shadow on that, so we can click pictures and just add a little bit of a shadow so it kind of looks nice. Make this bold, and we can also add a little bit darker color onto this. Okay, so now it's kind of a nice, we get to see that. So we have the item name, but let's add in some buttons here because I want to make sure that we have the button so the user can actually use a touch screen, which is kind of a nice. So we're going to insert shape, and we're just going to use a square shape in here. Okay, let's give it a size, try a little bit bigger, 0.6, and maybe a width of 0.7. Okay, so that's kind of a nice size for that. We have a nice big button there, so that's going to work. And I want to give it something closer to the theme, maybe this. Okay, that looks nice. I wanted to actually give it a font, a larger font. So I want to make this button number 1. And then I want to center that, of course, and then we'll duplicate it. But obviously it's going to be a lot bigger than that. So how big should it be? Probably about, let's see, 32 maybe. Let's click the button and click 32 here. Okay, let's give it a nice button. There we go. That looks good. Nice and big. And then we're ready to duplicate that. Let's duplicate it, Control D. And then this is going to be for 2. And then we can duplicate that again. And we'll click on there, duplicate that. This will be for our number 3. Nice. And then we want also, of course, number 4. So we'll duplicate that, Control D, because I want one for each one. And let me just go ahead and do these. I'll pause the video while I create each one. You get the point. So I want to make this a little quicker. Okay, now I've created all 12 buttons here. So now that I've created all 12 buttons, I'm going to name them. And very important to name them, at least use going to be 4 letters, at least minimum 4 letters and a number. So if I were to add, let's say I wanted to do BUT1, that wouldn't work. Why wouldn't that work? Because that's a cell. So if I hit enter, it's going to go right to a cell. You see that? BUT1. So we want to make sure that we have at least 4 letters. So let's do that. BUTN1, button 1. Okay, so that's going to work just fine. And I'm going to do the same thing with each of the buttons. There's no need to watch me name each one of them. So I'm going to pause this video and just name them all button 2. So hold on a second while I do that. Okay, I've named all the buttons, at least 1 through 9. This is going to be 0. This is not going to be 0. I want this to be clear. I want to be able to clear button. So let's type that in, clear, and then we're going to have to obviously reduce the font size on this one. So let's go ahead and reduce it down to where it'll fit in the cell here. Let's drop this down here and reduce that down, scroll up, probably. Okay, that one looks good. We can go a little bit higher, and then I'm going to underline it. Control U. All right, great. So we've got our basic format buttons there now. So let's line them up. All we need to do is use our selection here, and then I'm going to line them up like this. Format, and then we're going to align to the top, and then I'm going to probably bring them a little bit closer in. I've got a lot to cover here, so I want to bring them closer in here. And then also importantly, we're going to group everything together once we're set up. So there we go. That's a little bit tighter here. So we can, I've got a lot of space. I want to add buttons here too. So we're going to keep that a little bit closer together. Okay, good. So now we've got everything nice and close together, and I'm going to line the rest of these up, and there's no need for you to watch me do that because it's kind of boring. So I'll hold on a second, I'll pause it while I line everything up nicely, and then we'll create some more buttons. All right, now that I've got everything lined up, I've got a few more things. I don't want to name this button, obviously clear. This one's going to be different. It's going to have a different purpose, clear button. And I also want to add this one. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be called decimal button. because it's gonna have a little bit different macro. All right, okay, excellent. We've got a few more buttons to create. I want to create some different payment types. So let's do that. Let's create some buttons. I'm gonna just duplicate one of these buttons using Control D, and I'm gonna shrink this down the width because I want to fit more in here. Okay, maybe 0.5 because I want to put 3 buttons in here the same size. And there's gonna be no text on this. But what I'm gonna do is I want to put a